Nobody wakes up expecting their life to change. It just happens. One phone call, one wrong turn, one burst pipe in a mansion you had no business being in. This is a story about Marcus Thompson. Just Marcus. Not the man you will read about in magazines later. Not the man whose face will end up on every gossip site in New York. Just Marcus, a plumber from Queens with rough hands and a heart that had been shattered for 2 years. He lived in a small apartment that smelled like old radiators and yesterday's rice. The kind of place where the walls were thin enough to hear your neighbor's television and the heating worked only when it felt like it. Every morning, Marcus woke up at 5 a.m. He would step over the bills he could not pay and walk to the kitchen to make breakfast for his daughter before the sun came up. Zoe was 6 years old. She had her mother's eyes, the same deep brown that used to make Marcus believe in something bigger than himself. But her mother was gone now. 2 years gone. Cancer. The kind that does not ask permission. The kind that takes everything and leaves you with nothing but a photo on the nightstand and a wedding ring you cannot bring yourself to remove. Marcus still talked to that photo every night. "I'm trying, Angela," he would whisper in the darkness. "I'm trying so hard, baby." But trying was not enough. It never is when you are poor. That Tuesday morning, Marcus counted the money in the jar he kept on top of the refrigerator. $847. That was everything he had in the world. Rent was $1,400, due in 3 days. Zoe sat at the kitchen table eating cereal. Her feet dangled above the floor, swinging back and forth. She was wearing sneakers that were too small for her now. Marcus could see how her toes pressed against the front. But she never complained. She just walked a little slower so it would not hurt as much. That is the thing about children. They learn to suffer quietly when they love you. Have you ever had to choose between paying rent and giving your child what they need? If this story speaks to you, subscribe and leave a like. Tell us in the comments, where are you listening from? "Daddy," Zoe said between bites, "my friend Keisha got new shoes. Pink ones with lights." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "Soon, baby girl. I promise. Real soon." He kissed the top of her head and grabbed his keys. He had to drop her at his mother's house before heading to work. Grace Thompson had been watching Zoe since Angela passed. She never charged him $1 even though she could barely pay her own bills working as a home health aide. That was family. You show up even when showing up costs you something. Marcus was loading Zoe into his old van when his phone rang. A number he did not recognize. "Emergency job," the voice said. "The Hamptons. Burst pipe. Big money. Can you come now?" The Hamptons. Where rich people lived in houses with more bathrooms than Marcus had rooms. Where one job could pay his rent for 2 months. He looked at Zoe buckling herself into the seat. Looked at her worn-out shoes. Looked at the empty jar waiting at home. "I'll be there in 2 hours." Marcus Thompson had no idea that phone call was about to change everything. 47 miles away, in a mansion that could swallow Marcus's entire apartment building, Eleanor Sinclair sat alone at a dining table built for 20. She was 75 years old. Silver hair pinned back elegantly. Posture straight as a ruler even when no one was watching. She wore a simple cream blouse and pearl earrings that cost more than most people made in a year. But none of that mattered this morning. The house was silent. The kind of silence that presses against your ears. The kind that reminds you that money can buy everything except the one thing you actually need. Company. Her housekeeper had quit 3 weeks ago. Said the job was too lonely. Imagine that. Getting paid 6 figures to work in a mansion, and you leave because the silence gets too heavy. Eleanor understood. She had been carrying that silence for 19 years. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and felt her jaw tighten. Jonathan. She let it ring 4 times before answering. "Good morning, Aunt Eleanor." His voice was smooth, polished. The kind of voice they teach you at Harvard Business School. "I'm sending over some documents. Just need your signature on a few things. Nothing major. Nothing major." That was what Jonathan always said right before he asked for something major. "I'll look at them later." The board is getting anxious. They need to see strong leadership. Decisive action. You know how these things work. Eleanor closed her eyes. "I built this company from nothing, Jonathan. I know exactly how these things work." Silence on the other end. Then that laugh. The one that never reached his eyes. "Of course you did. I'm just trying to help." Family looks out for family, right? She hung up without saying goodbye. Family. That word used to mean something to her. Now it just meant people waiting for her to die so they could divide up the spoils. Eleanor pushed her breakfast away and walked to the window. 22 rooms in this house. A swimming pool she never used. Gardens maintained by people whose names she could not remember. $4 billion in the bank. And not a single person to share it with. She had been married 3 times. 3 men who promised forever and left when they realized forever would not include children. The doctors had told her at 23. A surgery gone wrong. Damage that could not be undone. Barren. That was the word they used. Like she was empty land. Worthless soil. She spent 52 years proving them wrong. Built an empire. Put her name on buildings across the world. Sinclair Luxury Hotels. 47 properties. 30,000 employees. And still, every night, she went to bed alone. A loud crash from upstairs snapped her out of her thoughts. Then the sound of water. Rushing, gushing, spraying against walls. Eleanor ran toward the guest bathroom and found chaos. A pipe had burst clean open. Water flooded across the marble floor, soaking the Persian rug her second husband had bought in Istanbul. She grabbed her phone and called her regular plumber. Voicemail. Called again. Nothing. The emergency service answered on the 3rd ring. We can have someone there in 2 hours, ma'am. Name's Marcus Thompson. Good worker. 2 hours later, the security gate buzzed. Ma'am, there's a plumber here. He looks rough. Eleanor glanced at the camera. Old van. Work clothes. A man who clearly did not belong in this neighborhood. Let him in. I don't care what he looks like. She had no idea those words would be the beginning of everything. Marcus fixed the pipe in 90 minutes. He worked quietly, efficiently, the way his father had taught him. No wasted movements. No unnecessary conversation. Just get the job done and move on. But Eleanor did not let him move on. Stay for lunch, she said when he finished. It's the least I can do. Marcus looked around the kitchen. Marble countertops. Appliances that probably cost more than his van. A refrigerator big enough to live in. I should get back to the city, ma'am. Please. Her voice softened. I haven't had company in 3 weeks. Just stay. Eat something. There was something in her eyes that made him put down his toolbox. Something familiar. The look of someone who had forgotten what it felt like to not be alone. So he stayed. They sat at her kitchen table and talked. At first about simple things. The weather. The traffic on the Long Island Expressway. The way rich people always seem surprised when things broke in their houses. But then the conversation shifted. You have kind eyes, Eleanor said. Sad, but kind. Who did you lose? Marcus set down his fork. No one had ever asked him so directly. My wife, Angela, 2 years ago. Cancer. I'm sorry. She was everything to me. We met in high school. Got married at 22. Had Zoe a few years later. I thought we had forever. Eleanor nodded slowly. I've been married 3 times. Each one promised me forever too. But forever has conditions, apparently. Conditions I couldn't meet. What conditions? Children. She looked out the window. I was 23 when the doctors told me I would never be a mother. Something went wrong during a surgery. Damage they couldn't fix. My husbands tried to accept it. But eventually, they all left. A woman who can't give you an heir isn't worth keeping, I suppose. Marcus shook his head. That's not true, isn't it? She smiled, but there was no joy in it. I built a $4 billion company trying to prove my worth. 47 hotels. My name on buildings around the world. And still, every single night, I go to bed alone. Silence hung between them. 2 broken people recognizing each other's cracks. I understand alone, Marcus said quietly. I wake up every morning reaching for someone who isn't there anymore. I talk to her picture at night like she can hear me. Some days, I forget she's gone. Then I remember, and it hits me all over again. Eleanor reached across the table and touched his hand. Her fingers were soft, warm. We're quite the pair, aren't we? A poor plumber and a rich old woman. Both drowning in empty rooms. Marcus looked at her hand on his. He should pull away. He knew that. This woman was old enough to be his grandmother. She had more money than he would see in 10 lifetimes. But her touch felt like the first warm thing he had experienced in 2 years. I should go, he said, not moving. Will you come back? I have other things that need fixing. They both knew she was not talking about pipes. Yeah, Marcus heard himself say. I'll come back. He drove home that night with her voice still in his head. Her laugh. The way she looked at him like he was a person and not just hired help. When he walked into his apartment, Angela's photo was waiting on the nightstand. Marcus sat on the edge of the bed and stared at it for a long time. Is this wrong? He whispered to the woman who could no longer answer. Feeling something again, is that betraying you? The photo said nothing, but somewhere deep in his chest, Marcus felt something he had not felt in 2 years. Permission. 2 weeks passed. Marcus kept finding reasons to drive out to the Hamptons. A faucet that dripped. A garbage disposal that jammed. A water heater that made strange noises. Eleanor paid him double for every visit. But they both knew the money was just an excuse. They would work for an hour. Then talk for 3. One Saturday, Marcus had no choice but to bring Zoe along. His mother had a doctor's appointment and there was no one else. Is this where your friend lives, Daddy? Zoe pressed her face against the van window as they pulled up to the gate. Yeah, baby. Her name is Eleanor. Be polite, okay? He was nervous. Nervous about what Eleanor would think. Nervous about what Zoe would say. Nervous about mixing these two worlds that had no business touching. But the moment Eleanor saw Zoe, something changed in her face. The tiredness disappeared. Her eyes lit up like someone had switched on a light that had been off for decades. Well, hello there, Eleanor said, kneeling down to Zoe's level. You must be the famous Zoe I've heard so much about. You have a really big house, Zoe said. Do you get lost sometimes? Eleanor laughed. A real laugh. The kind Marcus had never heard from her before. Sometimes I do. Would you like to see the garden? I have roses in every color. Zoe looked up at Marcus. He nodded. And just like that, his daughter took the hand of a 75-year-old billionaire and walked off to pick flowers like they had known each other forever. Marcus watched them through the window. Eleanor pointing at different plants. Zoe asking 100 questions. Two people separated by age and money and circumstance, finding common ground in something as simple as a garden. That night, when Marcus dropped Zoe at his mother's house, Grace was waiting with folded arms. You've been spending a lot of time in the Hamptons. It's work, Mama. Don't lie to me, Marcus. I raised you better than that. Her eyes were sharp. Worried. A 75-year-old white billionaire? What are you doing? She's my friend. Friends don't look at each other the way you look when you talk about her. I see it in your face. Every time you come back from that house, you're different. Is different bad? Grace grabbed his hand. I don't want you to get hurt. And I don't want Zoe to get confused. Be careful, baby. That's all I'm saying. Be careful. The next visit, Marcus was walking through Eleanor's hallway when something caught his eye. A wall of photographs. Charity galas. Hotel openings. Award ceremonies. Decades of Eleanor's life captured in frames. He stopped cold. In the background of one photo, carrying a tray of champagne glasses, was a woman in a catering uniform. Angela. His Angela. Marcus could not breathe. Eleanor. His voice cracked. This event. The Sinclair Foundation Gala, 2019. Do you remember it? Of course. We raised $2 million for cancer research that night. The caterers. You used Morrison Catering, right? Eleanor frowned. Yes. Why? Marcus touched the glass over Angela's face. My wife worked for Morrison Catering. She was there that night. She got sick 6 months later. Ovarian cancer. The color drained from Eleanor's face. Her insurance only covered part of the treatment, Marcus continued, his voice shaking. We were drowning. Then someone paid. An anonymous donor. $127,000. We never found out who. Eleanor's hand went to her mouth. I have a program, she whispered. For employees and contractors. If someone in their family gets sick and can't afford treatment, I help. Anonymously. I never meet them. It was you. Marcus turned to face her. Tears streaming down his cheeks. You saved her. You gave me 8 more months with my wife. If this moment just gave you chills, you're not alone. Hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. This story is far from over. Tell us in the comments, have you ever experienced something that felt like fate? Eleanor was crying now too. I didn't know. Marcus, I swear I didn't know it was your wife. But you helped anyway. A complete stranger. Why? Because no one should die alone and afraid just because they're poor. Because money should mean something more than numbers in a bank account. Marcus fell apart. He sank to the floor and sobbed in a way he had not sobbed since Angela's funeral. Eleanor dropped down beside him and held him. Two people crying together on a marble floor that cost more than his apartment. Those 8 months, Marcus choked out. She saw Zoe's first day of kindergarten. She taught her to ride a bike. She said goodbye to me properly. That was you, Eleanor. You gave me that. I didn't know, but you did it anyway. You saved someone you never met. They stayed on that floor until the sun went down. When they finally stood, something had shifted between them. This was not just connection anymore. This was fate. Later that evening, they walked through the garden. String lights glowed above them like tiny stars. The air smelled like roses and coming rain. Marcus, Eleanor said softly. I'm old enough to be your grandmother. This is insane. He stopped walking, turned to face her, took her face in his hands. You saved my wife without knowing her. You play with my daughter like she's your own blood. You see me, not a poor plumber, not some young black man from Queens. You see me. He wiped a tear from her cheek with his thumb. How is any of that insane? People will talk. They'll say terrible things about both of us. Let them talk. I spent 2 years being dead inside. You made me feel alive again. He kissed her, soft at first, hesitant. Two people who had forgotten what it felt like to want someone. Then deeper. Rain began to fall. Neither of them moved. Standing in that garden, holding a woman 43 years older than him, Marcus finally understood something Angela had told him before she died. Love doesn't make sense, baby. It just is. When you find it again, and you will, don't ask questions. Just hold on. He was holding on now. And he was not letting go. They ran inside laughing, soaking wet from the rain. Eleanor reached for a towel but Marcus caught her wrist. Don't go. She looked up at him. Water dripping from her silver hair. Chest rising and falling. Eyes asking a question her mouth would not speak. Eleanor. His voice was low, rough. If you want me to stop, tell me now. Because if I kiss you again, I won't be able to walk away. She answered by pulling him closer. The towel dropped to the floor. He kissed her slowly this time, tasting the rain on her lips. His hands moved to her waist, pulling her body against his. She gasped. Her fingers gripped his shirt like she was afraid he might disappear. Upstairs, she whispered. He lifted her. She wrapped her arms around his neck, burying her face against his throat. She felt weightless in his arms, fragile and strong at the same time. The bedroom door closed behind them. Marcus laid her down gently. Looked at her in the dim light. She tried to turn away. I'm old, Marcus. I have wrinkles. I'm not. He silenced her with his mouth on her collarbone. You're beautiful. His lips traced along her shoulder. Every line tells a story. He kissed her neck. Every mark is proof you survived. He pulled back to look in her eyes. You are the most beautiful woman I've seen since Angela. Don't ever let anyone tell you different. Tears slipped down her temples into her hair. His hands moved slowly, reverently, worshipping every inch of skin like she was something sacred. She trembled beneath his touch. Years of loneliness melting away with every kiss. Marcus. His name left her lips like a prayer. I'm here. He pressed his forehead to hers. I'm right here. The world outside disappeared. No mansions, no poverty, no age, no judgment. Just two people remembering what it felt like to be wanted. When the sun rose, they lay tangled together. Her head on his chest. His arms wrapped around her like he was protecting her from the entire world. I never thought I'd feel this again, she said softly. Neither did I. What are we doing, Marcus? This can't possibly work. He kissed the top of her head. I don't know what we're doing. But I know I don't want to stop. She smiled against his skin. Neither do I. They stayed in bed until almost noon. Then Marcus showered and came downstairs wearing one of Eleanor's guest robes. He was making coffee when the front door opened. Jonathan walked in like he owned the place. He froze when he saw Marcus standing in the kitchen. Bare feet, robe that clearly belonged to Eleanor. The smell of coffee brewing in a house that was supposed to be empty. What the hell is this? Eleanor appeared at the top of the stairs. Hair still damp, face flushed. Jonathan's expression shifted. Confusion became disgust. Disgust became something darker. Aunt Eleanor. Who is this man? And why is he wearing your robe? Jonathan, you should have called first. Answer my question. Marcus stepped forward. I'm Marcus. I'm a friend. Jonathan looked him up and down. Saw the work boots by the door. The old van parked outside. The calluses on his hands. A friend. He almost laughed. Right. He asked to speak with Eleanor privately. Marcus watched them disappear into the study. He could not hear the words, but he heard the tone. Jonathan's voice rising. Eleanor's voice cold and sharp. 5 minutes later, Jonathan stormed out. He paused at the front door and looked at Marcus with eyes full of poison. Enjoy it while it lasts. The door slammed behind him. In his car, Jonathan made a phone call. We have a problem. My aunt has a new companion. Young, black, poor, probably a con artist. Meredith's voice came through the speaker. So? Let her have her fun. She's lonely. What if she changes her will? What if she gives him everything? Silence. What if she gets pregnant? Meredith laughed. She's 75 and barren. That's impossible. Miracles happen, Meredith. And I'm not risking $47 million on miracles. What are you going to do? Jonathan stared at the mansion in his rearview mirror. His jaw tight. His mind already calculating. Whatever I have to. The headlines hit 2 weeks later. Every gossip site in New York ran the same story. The same photos. The same poison dressed up as news. Billionaire's boy toy. Inside Eleanor Sinclair's desperate affair with Queen's plumber. Gold digger or genuine love? The shocking truth about the man half her age. Sinclair heiress loses her mind over handyman, family demands mental evaluation. Marcus found out from a customer. He was under a sink in a Brooklyn brownstone when the homeowner shoved a phone in his face. This you, right? Damn, brother. You really hit the jackpot. Marcus stared at the screen. Photos of his van outside Eleanor's gate. Photos of him walking into her house. Photos from angles that meant someone had been watching. Waiting. His stomach turned to ice. By the end of the day, 6 clients had cancelled. By the end of the week, he had lost half his business. We won't be needing your services anymore. We found someone else. My wife doesn't feel comfortable with you in our home. Nobody said the real reason. They did not have to. Grace called him that night. Her voice was hoarse from crying. Everyone at church is talking. They showed me the article, Marcus. They're laughing at our family. Laughing at you. Mama, it's not what they're saying. Then what is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks exactly like what they're saying. She hung up before he could respond. But the worst part came the next afternoon. Marcus picked Zoe up from school. She climbed into the van with red eyes and tear-stained cheeks. Daddy, the kids said mean things. They said you date old ladies for money. They called you a bad word. Marcus gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. I'm not a bad word, baby. Daddy has a friend. A good friend. That's all. Then why is everyone being so mean? He had no answer. 3 days later, Jonathan made his real move. Eleanor's temporary housekeeper called her in the morning. Voice shaking. Nervous. Ma'am, I found something in Mr. Thompson's toolbox. I don't want to assume anything, but I thought you should know. A diamond bracelet. $200,000. Supposedly discovered buried beneath Marcus's wrenches. Jonathan arrived within the hour. A lawyer at his side. Concern painted across his face like a mask. Aunt Eleanor, I didn't want to believe it. But the evidence is clear. This man has been stealing from you. Marcus stood frozen. I didn't take anything. I've never even seen that bracelet before. It was in your toolbox. Security footage shows you near her bedroom multiple times. Jonathan shook his head slowly. At minimum, we need to call the police. This is a setup. Marcus looked at Eleanor. Desperate. Pleading. You know me. You know I would never. The bracelet was in your things, Mr. Thompson. Jonathan's voice dripped with false sympathy. That's not something I can ignore. None of us can. Eleanor stood silent. Her eyes moved between Marcus and Jonathan. Between the man she loved and the nephew she had raised. Then she spoke. That bracelet was in my safe, Jonathan. I haven't worn it in 3 years. How did it end up in a toolbox? Jonathan's smile flickered. Maybe you forgot. I don't forget where I keep $200,000 worth of diamonds. Aunt Eleanor, you're not thinking clearly. This man has manipulated you. The board is concerned. The family is concerned. We need to discuss your mental fitness. The room went cold. Jonathan laid out his terms. End the relationship. Submit to a competency evaluation. Transfer voting control to him temporarily. Or face a public legal battle that would destroy everything she had built. Marcus could not let that happen. I'll go. The words tore out of him like broken glass. I won't let them destroy you because of me. Marcus, don't. If I stay, they'll never stop. You know I didn't steal that bracelet. I know. Then trust me. Please. He kissed her forehead, long and slow, like he was memorizing the feel of her skin. Then he walked out. Eleanor watched his van disappear down the driveway. Her chest felt hollow, empty in a way money could never fill. Jonathan stood behind her, smiling. It's for the best, Aunt Eleanor. You'll see. She did not turn around. Did not give him the satisfaction. But somewhere deep inside, a fire was starting to burn. The kind that does not go out easily. Jonathan had made a mistake. He had underestimated what a woman like Eleanor Sinclair was capable of when someone took away the only thing that mattered. 2 weeks of silence. Marcus threw himself into work. Took every job he could find. Crawled under sinks at 6 in the morning and fixed toilets until midnight. Anything to keep his hands busy. Anything to keep his mind from drifting back to her. It did not work. Every night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling. His phone sat on the nightstand. Her number right there. 1 call away. He never dialed. Across Long Island, Eleanor was falling apart. Without Marcus, the silence in that mansion became unbearable. She stopped eating proper meals. Stopped sleeping through the night. Stopped pretending she was fine. Her heart condition worsened. The doctor warned her that stress was destroying her body. She nodded and ignored him. What was the point of living longer if living meant being alone? Then the symptoms started. Dizziness every morning. Nausea that hit without warning. Exhaustion so deep she could barely climb the stairs. Eleanor assumed the worst. Her body was giving up. 75 years of fighting and it was finally time to surrender. Part of her did not even care anymore. Jonathan called every other day now. Checking in. Asking questions. Pushing documents under her nose that she barely read before signing. The board members whispered behind her back. Lawyers circled like vultures. Everyone could smell blood in the water. Eleanor was drowning, and no one was coming to save her. Back in Queens, Marcus hit rock bottom. The landlord slid an eviction notice under his door. 30 days to pay or get out. Zoe needed school supplies he could not afford. Grace still refused to speak to him. He sat alone in his apartment one night. Angela's photo in his hands. The jar on the refrigerator empty. The bills on the floor multiplying. I messed up, baby. His voice cracked in the darkness. I fell in love again and I destroyed everything. I'm so sorry. I don't know what to do anymore. The photo did not answer. It never did. Tuesday morning, 9:47 a.m. Eleanor stood up from her desk and the room tilted sideways. She reached for the chair. Missed. Her body hit the marble floor hard. The sound echoed through the empty house. The housekeeper found her 20 minutes later. Unconscious. Barely breathing. Ambulance lights flashed outside the mansion as paramedics loaded her onto a stretcher. Marcus saw the news alert on his phone 3 hours later. Billionaire Eleanor Sinclair hospitalized. Condition unknown. He drove 90 miles an hour to Manhattan. Ran through the hospital doors. Heart pounding out of his chest. Eleanor Sinclair. What room? I need to see her. The nurse looked up. Are you family? I'm her. The word caught in his throat. What was he? I'm her. Only family members are allowed, sir. I'm sorry. Marcus stood outside her room, watching through a small window as doctors surrounded her bed. Machines beeping. Tubes everywhere. He pressed his palm against the glass. So close. And completely helpless. Still here? Jonathan's voice came from behind him. Smooth. Mocking. Is she okay? Marcus did not turn around. That's not your concern anymore. You're nobody. Just a plumber who got lucky for a little while. Jonathan stepped closer. Go home. There's nothing for you here. Marcus watched Eleanor through the glass. Her silver hair spread across the pillow. Her eyes closed. Her chest barely rising. If you're feeling this moment right now, you're not alone. Take a second to hit that subscribe button. This story is about to change in ways you won't believe. Tell us in the comments, have you ever felt completely powerless to help someone you love? Please, Marcus whispered against the glass. Please don't take her too. I can't lose someone else. I can't. Jonathan walked into Eleanor's room without looking back. Family privilege. Marcus stayed in that hallway for 6 hours. Watching, waiting, praying to a God he was not sure he believed in anymore. Somewhere on the other side of that glass, a miracle was already happening. He just did not know it yet. Eleanor woke up to white walls and beeping machines. Her mouth was dry. Her body ached. Everything felt heavy and far away. A doctor stood at the foot of her bed. Gray hair, kind eyes, clipboard in hand. Mrs. Sinclair, you gave us quite a scare. What happened? You collapsed. Dehydration, exhaustion, stress. He paused, looked at her chart, looked back at her with an expression she could not read. But we found something else in your blood work. We need to run more tests. Eleanor closed her eyes. Here it comes. The cancer, the organ failure, the death sentence she had been waiting for. Am I dying? The doctor tilted his head. Not exactly. Please, let us confirm something first. 4 hours later, he returned. His face had changed. The professional calm was gone. In its place was something Eleanor had never seen on a doctor before. Wonder. Mrs. Sinclair, I've been practicing medicine for 32 years. I've delivered thousands of babies. I've seen things that should be impossible. He sat down beside her bed. But I have never seen anything like this. Just tell me, you're pregnant. Eleanor stared at him, waited for the punchline, the correction, the apology for the mistake. None came. That's impossible. I'm 75 years old. I was told at 23 that I would never have children. My womb is barren. It has been barren for 52 years. Ma'am, I ran the test 7 times. I brought in 3 specialists. Every single result came back the same. He leaned forward. You are approximately 11 weeks pregnant. With twins. A boy and a girl. The room started spinning. Eleanor laughed. A broken sound that turned into a sob halfway through. How is this possible? The doctor explained. Rare post-menopausal ovulation. Hormone fluctuations. A body that had essentially reset itself against all odds. Sometimes extreme emotional changes can trigger it, he said. Your stress levels dropped significantly over the past few months. Your body responded. One final cycle. One last chance. Eleanor's hand moved to her stomach. Flat. Empty looking. But not empty at all. Twins? A boy and a girl. Both healthy so far. Tears streamed down her face. 52 years of being told she was broken. 3 husbands who left because she could not give them what they wanted. A lifetime of building an empire to fill the hole where a family should have been. And now this. I have to be honest, the doctor continued. Pregnancy at your age is extremely high risk. To you and to the babies. We can discuss options if you. No, Mrs. Sinclair. I said no. Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. I have waited 75 years for this moment. I am not giving it up. Do whatever you have to do. Take whatever precautions you need. But these babies are coming into this world. And I will be there to hold them. The doctor nodded slowly. He had seen that look before. The look of a mother who had already made her choice. Eleanor asked for her phone. Marcus answered on the first ring. Eleanor, are you okay? They wouldn't let me in. I've been going out of my mind. Come to the hospital. Room 412. Now. What's happening? Are you dying? Tell me. Just come. Please. 15 minutes later, Marcus burst through the door. She was sitting up, crying, smiling, both at once. Eleanor, what is it? What's wrong? She reached for his hand. Guided it to her stomach. Pressed it flat against her body. I'm pregnant, Marcus. We're having twins. He stopped breathing. That's not. It's real. A boy and a girl. The doctors confirmed it. Marcus's legs gave out beneath him. He fell to his knees beside her bed. Grabbed her hand with both of his. Pressed his forehead against her fingers and sobbed. I thought I lost you. I thought God was taking someone else from me. And now you're telling me. She cupped his face. Lifted his eyes to meet hers. We're going to be a family, Marcus. A real family. He kissed her hands. Her stomach. Her lips. I love you. I'm never leaving again. I don't care what anyone says. I don't care what they do. I'm staying. Down the hallway, Jonathan stood frozen outside the nurse's station. He had heard everything. Can you believe it? One nurse whispered to another. 75 years old. Pregnant with twins. It's a miracle. Jonathan's blood turned to ice. Biological heirs. Legal heirs. Children who would inherit everything. Children whose lawyers would demand audits. Investigations. Answers to questions he could not afford to answer. $47 million. Hidden. Buried. Safe, as long as Eleanor died childless. He pulled out his phone and made a call. We have a problem. A big one. She's pregnant. Silence on the other end. I don't care how impossible it sounds. It's happening. We need to move. Now. Before those babies are born. Jonathan hung up and looked toward Eleanor's room. Through the small window, he could see Marcus holding her. Both of them crying. Both of them smiling. A family. The one thing Jonathan never counted on. The one thing that could destroy him. Jonathan moved fast. 3 days after the hospital, he called an emergency board meeting. Sinclair Hotel's headquarters. 32nd floor. Every member of the board seated around a polished mahogany table. Jonathan stood at the front of the room. Pressed suit. Perfect hair. The mask of a concerned family member firmly in place. Thank you all for coming on short notice. I know this is difficult, but we need to discuss my aunt's condition. He clicked a button and Eleanor's photo appeared on the screen behind him. As you may have heard, Eleanor has been making some troubling decisions lately. A relationship with a much younger man. Claims of pregnancy at 75. Erratic behavior. He let the words hang in the air. I'm not suggesting she's incapable. But the board has a responsibility to protect this company. To protect her legacy. I'm proposing a temporary transfer of leadership until we can evaluate. The door swung open. Eleanor walked in like she owned the room. Because she did. She wore a navy blue dress. Diamond earrings. Head high. Eyes sharp. 5 months pregnant and glowing with a fire that made every man at that table sit up straighter. Marcus walked beside her. Clean shirt. Steady gaze. Refusing to look away from anyone. And behind them, Grace Thompson. Arms folded. Chin raised. A mother who had finally chosen the right side. I hear you're discussing my mental fitness, Jonathan. Eleanor's voice cut through the silence. Perhaps I should be present for that conversation. Jonathan recovered quickly. Aunt Eleanor, this isn't what it looks like. We're all just concerned about my money. Let's not pretend otherwise. She walked to the head of the table. Her seat. The one she had earned over 40 years of building this company from nothing. You want to talk about my decisions? Fine, let's talk. She looked around the room. Yes, I am in a relationship with Marcus Thompson. Yes, I am pregnant with twins. Yes, I intend to marry him. Anyone have a problem with that? Silence. Jonathan stepped forward. The board has questions about your judgment. This man is 43 years younger than you. He was accused of theft. There are concerns about manipulation. Accused by whom, Jonathan? Eleanor tilted her head. The bracelet that mysteriously appeared in his toolbox? From a safe only you had the combination to? The room shifted. Board members exchanged glances. I had security footage analyzed by an independent firm. Footage you didn't know existed. She pulled a folder from her bag. Your housekeeper. The one you bribed. She used a key she should never have had. A key that came from your office. Jonathan's smile cracked at the edges. A board member spoke up. Mr. Thompson, you understand how this situation appears. A man of your background with a woman of Mrs. Sinclair's wealth. What do you have to say? Marcus stood. My background. He let the words sit for a moment. You mean poor. You mean black. You mean not one of you. He looked around the table. Met every pair of eyes. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens. My father was a plumber. My mother still works as a home health aide at 58 years old. I've worked with my hands since I was 14. I buried my wife 2 years ago. I raise my daughter alone. I have less money in my bank account than most of you spend on dinner. He paused. So yes, Eleanor Sinclair is richer than I will ever be. But I didn't fall in love with her money. I fell in love with her. The woman who eats lunch with me even though I show up smelling like work. Who plays with my daughter like she's her own grandchild. Who saved my wife's life without ever knowing her name. Silence. I love her. I'm going to marry her. And those babies she's carrying? Those are my children. I will work 3 jobs to provide for them. I will protect them with my life. Because that's what fathers do. That's what men do. Not men with money. Just men. Grace was crying quietly in the back of the room. Eleanor stepped forward. Now, while we're discussing fitness for leadership, let's discuss yours, Jonathan. She slid a thick folder across the table. Forensic audit of Sinclair Hotels. 15 years of falsified records. $47 million embezzled. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. Jonathan's face went white. Did you think I was stupid? Eleanor's voice was ice. I built this company from nothing. You think I don't notice when someone steals from me? Board members grabbed the documents. Flipped through pages. The color drained from face after face. I was going to handle this quietly. Family business. Eleanor moved closer to Jonathan. But then you came after the man I love. You planted evidence. You tried to have me declared incompetent. You put my children at risk. The boardroom doors opened again. 2 men in dark suits. FBI badges visible. Jonathan Sinclair? You're under arrest for wire fraud, embezzlement, and money laundering. Jonathan tried to run. Made it 3 steps before they grabbed him. You can't do this. I'm family. Aunt Eleanor, please. Eleanor watched them force his hands behind his back. Click the handcuffs into place. You were family, Jonathan. I raised you after your father died. I gave you everything. Her voice cracked. Just slightly. And you would have let me die alone so you could take it all. They dragged him toward the door. He was shouting now, threatening, promising revenge. Eleanor turned away. Marcus put his arm around her. Held her steady. The board chairman cleared his throat. I believe we can dismiss the motion regarding Mrs. Sinclair's competency. All in favor? Every hand went up. Eleanor looked at the room full of people who had doubted her. Judged her. Whispered behind her back. Now, if we're finished here, I have a wedding to plan. She took Marcus's hand and walked out. Grace followed them into the elevator. The doors closed. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Grace reached over and squeezed Eleanor's arm. Welcome to the family. Eleanor burst into tears. Marcus held them both as the elevator descended. 2 women who had every reason to hate each other. Finding common ground in the love of the same man. In the lobby, reporters had already gathered. Cameras flashing. Questions shouting. Mrs. Sinclair, is it true you're pregnant? Who is the father? What do you say to critics who call this relationship inappropriate? Eleanor stopped. Looked directly into the nearest camera. I say that love doesn't check your ID. It doesn't ask for your bank statement. It doesn't care about the color of your skin or the number of years you've lived. She squeezed Marcus's hand. I spent 75 years being told I wasn't enough. Today, I finally believe that I am. She smiled. No more questions. They walked out into the sunlight together. A billionaire, a plumber, and a miracle no one saw coming. The wedding was small. 50 guests in Eleanor's garden. String lights hanging from the oak trees. White roses everywhere. The same garden where they had shared their first kiss in the rain. Zoe walked down the aisle first. 9 years old now, scattering petals with the biggest smile Marcus had ever seen. She wore a dress Eleanor had picked out. Pink with tiny flowers. The shoes had lights in them. She finally got her light-up shoes. Grace walked Marcus to the altar. Her arm through his. Her eyes wet with tears she kept wiping away. Your father would be proud, she whispered. Angela too. Marcus kissed her cheek. Thank you for being here, Mama. Nowhere else I'd rather be. Then Eleanor appeared. She wore cream silk. Simple. Elegant. Flowers woven into her silver hair. Her stomach round with the twins she had waited 75 years to carry. Marcus forgot how to breathe. She walked toward him slowly. Every step deliberate. Every moment savored. This was not her first wedding. But it would be her last. The only one that mattered. When she reached him, he took her hands. They were trembling. So were his. The officiant spoke. Words about love. About commitment. About the courage it takes to choose each other when the whole world says you shouldn't. Then came the vows. Marcus went first. Eleanor, I spent 2 years believing love was behind me. That I had used up my share. That the best parts of my life were already buried in a cemetery in Brooklyn. His voice cracked. You proved me wrong. You showed me that hearts can break and still keep beating. That grief and joy can live in the same chest. That age is just time, and time means nothing when I look at you. He squeezed her hands tighter. I promise to love you. To protect you. To be the father our children deserve and the husband you always wanted. Forever. Eleanor's turn. Marcus. I built an empire trying to fill the hole in my heart. I thought success could replace family. That money could replace love. She laughed softly through her tears. I was so wrong. You came into my house to fix a pipe. But you fixed something much deeper. You fixed me. You gave me hope when I had given up on hoping. You gave me a family when I thought I would die alone. She touched his face. I promise to love you. To cherish you. To stand beside you no matter what the world says. You are my miracle, Marcus Thompson. My forever. I now pronounce you husband and wife. He kissed her. The garden erupted in applause. Zoe ran up and hugged them both. Grace was sobbing openly now. Even the caterers were wiping their eyes. For one perfect moment, everything was exactly right. 4 months later, Mount Sinai Hospital. An army of doctors. Every specialist money could buy. Eleanor in a bed surrounded by machines. Marcus gripping her hand so tight his knuckles went white. High-risk delivery. Everyone knew the dangers. The labor was long. Brutal. 18 hours of pain and fear and prayers whispered into sterile air. Then something went wrong. Eleanor's heart rate dropped. Alarms screamed. Doctors shouted orders. Marcus was pushed back as a crash cart rolled in. We're losing her. 30 seconds of flatline. The longest 30 seconds of Marcus's life. He fell to his knees in the corner of that room. Hands clasped together. Tears streaming down his face. Please, God. Please. Not her. Not now. Not after everything. Beep. 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 She came back. And then, crying. 2 tiny voices filling the room with sound. Mr. Thompson? A nurse approached him with a bundle in her arms. Would you like to meet your son? Michael Marcus Thompson. 5 pounds, 4 ounces. 10 fingers. 10 toes. His mother's eyes. Another nurse brought the second bundle. Angela Grace Thompson. 5 pounds, 1 ounce. Named for the wife who had brought Marcus and Eleanor together without ever knowing it. Eleanor held them both. One in each arm. Tears streaming down her face. I waited 75 years to hear this sound, she whispered. 75 years. Marcus climbed onto the bed beside her. Wrapped his arms around his wife and his children. His family. You did it, he said. You really did it. We did it. Together. 3 years later. The Thompson estate. Hamptons. Summer afternoon. Zoe was 12 now. Teaching the twins to ride tricycles on the back lawn. Michael kept crashing into bushes on purpose. Angela took her time and did it perfectly on the first try. Just like her namesake, Marcus said from the porch. Grace lived in the guest house now. Retired. Full-time grandmother. Spoiling all 3 children with cookies and stories and more love than any of them knew what to do with. Eleanor sat in a rocking chair. 78 years old. Healthier than she had been in decades. Watching her family with eyes that still couldn't believe any of this was real. Marcus brought her coffee. Sat down beside her. Took her hand. Any regrets? She looked at her children running across the grass. At her stepdaughter laughing in the sunlight. At her husband's face, still handsome, still kind, still looking at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. Only that it took me 75 years to find you. He kissed her hand. Worth the wait? She smiled. Worth everything. Some people say love has an expiration date. That there comes an age when hope runs out and miracles stop happening. But Eleanor Sinclair and Marcus Thompson proved them all wrong. Because love doesn't check your ID. It doesn't ask for your bank statement. It doesn't care about the color of your skin or the number of candles on your birthday cake. Love shows up when your pipes burst and a stranger with gentle hands fixes more than your plumbing. He fixes your heart. And sometimes, if you are very, very lucky, he gives you a family you never thought you would have. It is never too late for a miracle. Remember that. If this story moved you, please take a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything to us and helps us keep creating these emotional journeys for you. Share this story with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Someone who thinks love has passed them by. Someone who has given up on miracles. Tell us in the comments, where in the world are you listening from? And have you ever experienced a love that others said was impossible? Super thanks really help us continue bringing these stories to life. Every contribution matters. Until next time, stay blessed. Stay hopeful. And remember, it is never too late for love.